chronology of the wizarding world of Harry Potter. To say that J.K. Rowling's story about Harry Potter took the world by storm is an understatement. The first books were devoured by fantasy lovers like hotcakes. The romantic story of a poor, lonely teacher coming up with a tale for her child on a train only fueled the interest. The long break between the fourth and fifth books caused an uproar among the newly formed army of fans. While readers were waiting for the sequel, the tale unexpectedly matured. In the final three parts, philosophical questions are raised, only slightly veiled by the story about children, and the children aren't really children anymore. Movies and series are made based on the magical world, and this world keeps expanding, turning into a full-fledged universe. And every universe needs its own timeline. Let's take a look through it and refresh our memories of these captivating adventures, whose beginnings lie hidden in the darkness of the ages, when magic ruled the world. So, the first known record of wizards living among us tells that in 382 BC the Ollivander family business was founded. Yes, the same one that still makes wands to this day, and only death itself could make a better one. Wands have been known since ancient times, but flying on broomsticks wasn't invented until 962 AD, deep in the Middle Ages. At the end of the 10th century, rumor has it in 990, 4 exceptional wizards founded Hogwarts, the school of witchcraft and wizardry. The founders, Godric Gryffindor, Salazar Slytherin, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Helga Hufflepuff, aimed to bring some order to the magical world. Even though the frenzied witch hunts were still a couple of centuries away, magically gifted children were constantly in danger. The founders of Hogwarts decided to sort students based on their abilities and personal traits. This is how the 4 houses came to be. However, the school accepted any child with magical power, regardless of background. In the 11th century, near the Quidditch Marsh, local wizards came up with a game of the same name. It would later evolve into the globally loved Quidditch. But for now, it was just a prototype. The most thrilling element, the snitch, was still missing. That same century, conflicts arose among the Hogwarts founders. The cautious Salazar Slytherin, who leaned toward the dark arts, insisted that the school should only be open to children from wizarding families. He claimed that neither half-bloods nor muggle-borns should be admitted. Slytherin is often portrayed as a snake-tongued villain who caused all the trouble. But if we look at it differently, studying the dark arts is an essential part of magical education. One of the Harry Potter books suggests that you can't fight something you know nothing about. Back to the 11th century, J.K. Rowling's magical world is tightly intertwined with real Earth history. And if we consider Salazar Slytherin's actions from a historical perspective, his stance seems almost justified. The Norman conquest of England brought a wave of fanatical Catholics from France seeking land, riches, and power. There were constant armed clashes and other conflicts between Normans and Anglo-Saxons. The native population was oppressed and driven off their lands. Add to that the growing seeds of the Inquisition within the imposed Orthodox faith. In this context, Slytherin's obsession with pure-blood wizards and his interest in the dark arts seems less malevolent. More like a defense mechanism in a world becoming increasingly dangerous for wizards. His 3 colleagues united against Salazar, believing his motives to be rooted in pure snobbery. We can speculate endlessly on the motives of ancient wizards, but Slytherin was eventually forced to leave the school. Before departing, he left an unpleasant surprise, the Chamber of Secrets, hiding a basilisk. Another tragic story from the 11th century that took place at Hogwarts is tied to Rowena Ravenclaw. Her daughter, Helena, one of the school's first students, studied in her mother's house. Sadly, the young witch strove too hard for perfection, using not-so-honest means. At some point, driven by jealousy, she stole her mother's diadem. Helena believed the artifact would help her quickly surpass her mother. Unfortunately, it only led to her death, and a subsequent eternal non-life. Feeling her end near, Rowena tried to reconcile with her daughter. She sent the Bloody Baron, one of Slytherin's first students, to find her. The young man had long loved Helena without return. Rowena's decision proved to be a mistake. The Bloody Baron found Helena, but after yet another rejection, killed her in a fit of rage, and then himself. Whether Rowena Ravenclaw's sanity was affected by the absence of the diadem remains an open question. After death, Helena Ravenclaw became a ghost, as did her unfortunate admirer. We know both of them from the books. They are the Grey Lady and the Bloody Baron, the house ghosts of Ravenclaw and Slytherin. Even in death, the poor fellow never won his beloved's heart. In the 12th century, something resembling trade finally developed among wizarding communities. This influenced the quality of magical items, such as broomsticks. Even a century after their introduction, some witches still complained that they were extremely uncomfortable for flying. Apparently, due to this expansion of public relations, the game of Quidditch went to the people, losing the R from its name. By the middle of the century, the sport had gathered enough fans to justify the creation of the British-Irish League. In 1163, the first club was founded, Puddlemere United. The main magical event of the 13th century was the creation of the Deathly Hallows. These objects had a huge impact not only on the outcome of the Second Wizarding War against Voldemort, but also on Harry Potter's worldview. In 1269, a certain head of the Wizards' Council, Barbarous Bragg, made an unexpected addition to Quidditch. He released a rare magical bird, the Golden Snidget, onto the field and promised 150 galleons to the one who caught it. This act sparked outrage among many wizards. The problem was that the creature was very delicate and couldn't survive being caught. Although the first Snidget was saved by a kind-hearted witch, the bird's fate was sealed. They began to be used in Quidditch, nearly driving them to extinction. A new player role appeared in Quidditch, the Seeker. In 1289, the International Wizarding Conference took place, and just 5 years later, the first Triwizard Tournament was held between the magical schools of Hogwarts, Beauxbatons, and Durmstrang. A tense but developing relationship began to form. The 14th century was marked by especially active persecution of witches and wizards by Muggles. Unfortunately, it was mostly innocent Muggles who burned at the stakes of the Holy Inquisition. But what do wizards care? They themselves possess the flame-freezing charm. And not only that, true, not all of them did, but who counts collateral damage? At the beginning of the century, Nicholas Flamel was born, the first and only person to obtain the Philosopher's Stone. The great alchemist found quite a simple use for it. He created the elixir of life to achieve immortality. The existence of the Philosopher's Stone and the possibility of eternal life would stir the minds of the magical community for centuries to come. Meanwhile, Quidditch games led to the near extinction of the Golden Snidgets. The few surviving birds were placed under strict protection, and Bowman Wright invented the snitch. In 1357, a Muggle named Cyprian Udall died after deciding, to his own misfortune, to watch a Quidditch match. One wonders what the Inquisitors would have done had he survived. Nevertheless, the Wizards' Council took action only 5 years later, after the number of victims increased. Quidditch matches were banned within a 50-mile radius of Muggle settlements. Obviously, this measure didn't help, because in 1368 the restriction was tightened. Now a distance of 100 miles had to be observed. By the end of the 14th century, Quidditch finally took on the features we recognize today, becoming very similar to the beloved game of modern-day wizards. By the early 15th century, Quidditch captured the attention of Europe, all while witch hunts continued to gain momentum. Eventually, the Wizards' Council had to take severe measures. As of 1419, Quidditch was banned in any location where Muggles might even appear. Those who violated this law would be chained to the wall in a dungeon. In 1473, the first ever Quidditch World Cup was held, alongside other achievements. The athletes from Flanders and Transylvania set a rather dubious record. During the match, all 700 known fouls in the game were recorded. On October 31st, 1492, the unfortunate Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington was executed. This wizard failed to please Lady Grieve, a lady-in-waiting of King Henry VII. The lady herself was a Muggle, but clearly knew who Nicholas was. She wanted to have her crooked teeth fixed, but instead the wizard gifted her with fangs. Alas, a scorned woman is quite literally a deadly enemy. Sir Nicholas suffered 45 axe blows to the neck, and only the last one killed him. However, it didn't fully decapitate him. We know this character well, nearly headless Nick. Surprisingly, the magical world ignored the prosecution of wizards for quite a long time, and some wizards even openly helped muggles. Only in the 16th century did the magical community begin raising children with a hostile attitude toward ordinary people. The word muggle became almost an insult, and even children's fairy tales were rewritten to match the new ideology. This happened, for example, with the tale of the wizard and the hopping pot, from the Tales of Beetle the Bard. In 1527, the last basilisk was seen in England. Breeding these creatures, by the way, is strictly prohibited due to their extreme danger. In 1539, Quidditch players were banned from using wands against opponents. This restriction was officially added to the game's rules. The 17th century began with the discrimination of sentient magical beings. In 1612, the Wizards' Council banned the use of wands for anyone other than witches and wizards. Most likely around this time, the council transformed into the Ministry of Magic. That same year, the Goblin Rebellion in Hogsmeade took place. One of the village's inns was used as a headquarters by the protesters. The goblins were outraged by the lack of representation in the Wizengamot. In 1637, the Wizards' Council, or perhaps already the Ministry of Magic, passed the Werewolf Code of Conduct. Amusingly, this legislation required the signatures of werewolves, but no one showed up for the procedure. Understandably so, who would want to reveal such a secret to the entire country? In 1672, the gap between wizards and muggles deepened. Certain studies claimed that one can only be born a wizard. Gaining magical powers by any other means was impossible. These findings were conducted by none other than the Ministry of Magic. In 1675, Brutus Malfoy went further. He claimed that wizards who associated with muggles had weaker magical potential. Naturally, this was mere propaganda aimed at elevating the purebloods into a separate caste. From 1689 to 1692, the International Statute of Secrecy was drafted, signed, and finalized. In principle, these measures were centuries overdue, but better late than never. The magical community separated from muggles and began moving toward progress on its own path, even if that path sometimes led to regression. In addition to the obligations to conceal magical activity in communities, the statute required governing bodies to convince muggles that dragons and other magical creatures did not exist. Despite the council having been called a ministry for almost a century, the officially sanctioned named Ministry of Magic did not appear until 1707. By 1709, the Wizards' Convention declared dragon breeding illegal. In 1711, the first steps were taken against practitioners of the dark arts. The Imperius, Cruciatus, and Killing Curses were declared unforgivable. The initiative came from the Ministry of Magic. In 1749, due to reckless behavior by vampires, the International Statute of Secrecy was expanded. In 1750, the Ministry of Magic finally turned its attention to sports. The first detailed and documented rulebook for Quidditch was adopted. In the same year, Article 73 was added to the International Statute of Secrecy. It stated that local governments were obligated to hide and protect magical creatures living in their territories. Otherwise, they faced disciplinary action. It sounds a bit funny if you forget for a moment that this was the mid-18th century. In 1752, another Goblin Rebellion occurred. It seemed to be becoming a habit, although most sources do not recall the cause. In 1762, the Ministry of Magic officially banned the game of Creothcean for being excessively dangerous. Understandably so, since of the 12 players entering the field, only 2 were supposed to survive, at least according to the fiction of the time. In 1792, during a challenge at the Triwizard Tournament, a basilisk escaped. Several wizards were injured, including 3 judges. As a result, the tournament was shut down for 200 years. The next one would not take place until 1994. In 1798, at the close of the century, the Ministry of Magic was led by its first female head, Artemisia Lufkin. In 1820, the broomstick love potion was invented. It may sound funny, but in fact, it was a terrifying weapon. And if you're wondering what can result from frequent rebellions, just ask the goblins, because in 1824 the Ministry of Magic handed over the management of Gringotts Bank to them. In 1881, the eldest son, Albus, was born into the mixed family of Percival and Kendra Dumbledore. The boy's path to the heights of magical mastery and human wisdom proved long and thorny. In 1890, the youngest Dumbledore child, Ariana, was attacked by Muggle boys. The girl suffered severe psychological trauma that eventually led to her early death. For punishing his daughter's abusers, Percival Dumbledore was sent to Azkaban for life. Was that punishment too harsh? From 1892 to 1899, Albus Dumbledore studied at Hogwarts but was unable to continue his academic career after graduation. During one of Ariana's episodes, she accidentally killed their mother, and Albus had to return home to care for his sister. It was during this time that Albus briefly befriended Gellert Grindelwald. The idea of placing wizards in charge of the entire world, including the non-magical part for the greater good, captivated both young men. However, Albus rather quickly realized that he could not follow Gellert or his ideas. It's unlikely that the accidental death of his sister was the sole reason. More likely, Albus already understood the harmfulness of his friend's proto-fascist beliefs. As for his brother, Aberforth, the future Great Wizard quarreled with him seriously and for a long time. (1918) Newton Scamander, after graduating from Hogwarts and working 2 years at the Ministry of Magic, received an offer to write a book about magical creatures. In 1925, Marvel O'Gaunt ended up in Azkaban for a full 6 months for attacking Ministry employees. Upon returning, he discovered that his daughter Merope had run off with a Muggle, Tom Riddle. The matter was further complicated by the fact that Merope had used a love potion on him. Tom Marvolo Riddle was born on December 31st, 1926, taking his mother's life in the process. He remained in the care of an orphanage. In 1932, the Ilfracombe incident occurred, when a Welsh green dragon landed directly on a Muggle-crowded beach. Considering it was a dragon, there were casualties. The Wizarding Toke family had to work hard wiping the survivors' memories. It wasn't just Muggles who aspired to global flights in the early 20th century. In 1935, Jocunda Sykes earned the title of the first witch to cross the Atlantic on a broomstick. In 1938, Albus Dumbledore visited Tom Riddle in the orphanage where he lived. On September 1st of that year, Tom began his studies at Hogwarts in Slytherin House. Interestingly, the same year Muggles began World War II, 1939, Gellert Grindelwald's ideas spread through magical Europe like a plague. His ambition to subject the whole world to wizarding rule and abolish the Statute of Secrecy found quite a few supporters, though the movement of magical fascists somehow bypassed England. In 1943, Tom Riddle located and opened the Chamber of Secrets. The basilisk he released killed the Muggle-born student Myrtle Warren. Then headmaster Armando Dippet had to find the culprit or the school would be shut down. Here, the future Voldemort displayed remarkable cunning and awareness. As a result, third-year student Rubeus Hagrid, who had secretly kept the spider Aragog, was expelled. From this incident, the world gained Voldemort and Hogwarts a new ghost, Moaning Myrtle. By this time, Riddle had gained knowledge about creating Horcruxes and wasn't about to stop. First, he turned his diary into a Horcrux. That summer, he killed his father and grandparents. The Ring of Marvel O'Gaunt, stolen from his uncle Morphin, became the second Horcrux. By 1945, Grindelwald's movement had become a real threat to both Muggles and wizards. The number of casualties surpassed all reasonable limits. Albus Dumbledore dueled Gellert and triumphed. Albus claimed the Elder Wand, one of the Deathly Hallows they had once sought together. Grindelwald got a lifetime sentence in Nurmengard prison, which he himself had built. In 1947, Newton Scamander advocated for a law requiring werewolves to register in a special registry. The law was approved by the ministry. At that time, Bathilda Bagshot published her History of Magic. One wonders, did she mention her great-nephew Gellert Grindelwald? And if so, how? From 1955 to 1961, Tom Riddle stole and turned into Horcruxes Helga Hufflepuff's cup and Salazar Slytherin's locket. He did not forget that murder was essential. During these years, his victim was Hepzibah Smith. In 1956, Minerva McGonagall took up the position of Transfiguration Professor at Hogwarts. The role had previously belonged to Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore, in turn, became the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. In 1960, the Marvelous Marauders were born: James Potter, Remus Lupin, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew. Lily Evans and Severus Snape were born the same year. No wonder they would all study at Hogwarts in the same year. In 1962, a Muggle-born wizard became Minister for Magic for the first time. From 1965 to 1969, Armando Dippet handed over the role of headmaster at Hogwarts to his successor, Albus Dumbledore. The pinnacle of a magical career? Quite possibly. Clearly, the leadership change came just in time. In 1970, the former Tom Riddle, now the true Lord Voldemort, launched the First Wizarding War. A year later, the group that would play a key role in both of his defeats entered the school. In 1972, Remus Lupin's secret was discovered by his friends in their second year. Instead of distancing themselves from him, the young wizards devoted great effort to becoming animagi. Perhaps someone still cared that certain sentient magical beings lived in slavery, but not the Ministry of Magic. An appeal against the enslavement of house elves was rejected in 1973. In 1975, the magical glow of the Marauders map first saw the light of day. Its mischievous creators had completed their transformation into animagi. In 1976, Severus Snape, humiliated by the Marauders and betrayed by the girl he loved, joined the Death Eaters. Curiously, he was partially driven to this act by Headmaster Dumbledore, who covered up a very unpleasant incident. Most unfortunately, 3 years later, Pettigrew followed Snape. True, Peter's friends didn't openly torment him like Severus, but hurt feelings and envy can be terrifying forces. In 1980, James and Lily Potter had a son, Harry. To celebrate this event, the Potters temporarily stepped away from the fight against Voldemort and went into hiding in Godric's Hollow. Unfortunately, they chose the enemy's spy, Peter Pettigrew, as their secret keeper. Yet, they still had a chance to survive and raise their child in peace. It was Sybil Trelawney who took that chance from them. It was her prophecy about a child who could defeat the Dark Lord that sent Voldemort searching for the newborn boy. A year later, the Dark Lord visits Godric's Hollow with the intent to kill the 1-year-old Harry. Yet, before the selfless love of a mother, the great Dark Wizard who had terrorized the entire world proves powerless. Lily and James die, but the deadly curse meant for baby Harry rebounds onto its caster, disembodying him for a long time. Thus ends the First Wizarding War. Orphaned Harry Potter is secretly placed into the care of Lily Evans' sister's family. This is a Muggle family, and they loathe wizards, even though they know of their existence. Many Death Eaters are sent to Azkaban, quite deservedly. Along with them goes Sirius Black, unjustly accused of betraying the Potters. Such is magical justice. And what about the real traitor? Oh, he managed to disappear just in time. After all, he's an animagus, and sometimes the ability to turn into a rat is quite useful. Somewhere between 1982 and 1985, Pettigrew was taken in by the Weasley family. The rat was named Scabbers, and in the poor, large family, he served as a postal owl. In 1991, Harry Potter learns he is a wizard. Needless to say, he is overjoyed to enter Hogwarts. Even if he hadn't befriended Ron and Hermione, no longer having to share a house with the Dursleys would have been reason enough. The boy does not yet know that the spirit of the Dark Lord he supposedly vanquished is already awakening. His 7 years at school will become the tale of a child opposing a vicious enemy. 1992, while parasitically inhabiting Professor Quirrell's head, Voldemort tries to obtain the Philosopher's Stone. In truth, the Dark Lord wants the elixir of life, but he hopes to make it himself. The cunning plan is, by sheer accident, thwarted by Harry Potter and his friends, just as mischievous rule breakers as the infamous Marauders. Nicholas Flamel, in order not to grant Voldemort immortality, gives up his own. Meanwhile, Ginny Weasley finds Tom Riddle's diary. The Horcrux takes over the girl's mind. Ginny opens the Chamber of Secrets, releasing the Basilisk. 1993, That same gang of children led by Harry manages to slay the basilisk. It's strange, really, how they survived. But that's the nature of fairy tales. Salazar Slytherin's gift to his heirs meets an inglorious end. The cursed diary is also destroyed. Ah, if only the kids had known what a Horcrux was. Meanwhile, Sirius Black manages to escape from Azkaban. Apparently, for some, it's possible. 1994, Peter Pettigrew is exposed. Naturally, he runs back under his beloved master's wing. In October, the Triwizard Tournament is revived at Hogwarts. Of course, it's not without the interference of Death Eaters lying in wait. 1995, this year marks the beginning of the Second Wizarding War, because in June, Voldemort regains his body. The first victim of the wizarding conflict is Cedric Diggory, and Harry Potter narrowly escapes death. The magical world threatens to split into two opposing camps once again, but the Ministry of Magic refuses to believe the Dark Lord has returned. The Death Eaters are summoned by their master, and Dumbledore is left to face the problem alone. With no other choice, he secretly revives the Order of the Phoenix. The young adventurers, Harry and his friends, at first just want to practice magic in the Room of Requirement, but it soon grows into Dumbledore's army. 1996. Seeking the full text of the prophecy, the Dark Lord and his cronies attack the Ministry of Magic. In this battle, Sirius Black dies, and Voldemort's return becomes indisputable. This costs Cornelius Fudge his seat as minister, but who cares about such trifles? That summer, Dumbledore finds Marvolo Gaunt's ring. He knows for certain that it's a Horcrux, yet he fails to protect himself from the ring's dark magic. Despite Severus Snape's efforts to help, the Great Wizard has less than a year left to live. 1997. Harry Potter and company gain the knowledge of the Dark Lord's secret to immortality. Dumbledore has managed to prepare Harry for the fact that the end of this story will ultimately depend on him alone. Harry and his friends dedicate their final school year to hunting Horcruxes. They even manage the impossible, robbing the impregnable Gringotts Bank. May the 2nd, 1998. Harry Potter, the final Horcrux, dies in the battle with the Dark Lord, thereby stripping him of his immortality. The resurrected Harry, armed with the Elder Wand, ends the life of Tom Marvolo Riddle, feared by all the world's wizards. The Second Wizarding War is over. The Deathly Hallows are gathered and separated. Harry Potter does not seek to rule the world. He is no Gellert Grindelwald. In the early 2000s, Harry and Ginny Weasley married, and in 2004 their first son was born. Ron and Hermione also tied the knot. 2007, Harry becomes head of the Uproar office at the Ministry of Magic. Well, yes, Voldemort is dead, but dark wizards still remain. 2017, Albus Severus Potter goes off to study at Hogwarts. Much to his parents' surprise, he is sorted into Slytherin and becomes friends with Draco Malfoy's son, Scorpius. 2 years later, Hermione becomes Minister for Magic. This is surely the pinnacle of a career for a girl who once dreamed only of teaching or research. In 2020, the exceptionally gifted children of former mortal enemies, Albus Potter and Scorpius Malfoy, fall into the trap of Voldemort's illegitimate daughter by Bellatrix Lestrange, and chaos ensues. The kids, having stolen an enhanced time turner, cause several timeline alterations, trying to prevent Cedric Diggory's death. They nearly bring about the resurrection of the Dark Lord. Exactly what his secret daughter wanted. They couldn't do it without their parents' help. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Draco had to step in to save their children. Of course, in the end, good prevails, and the troublemaker, Delphi, is sent to Azkaban, so she can stop messing with the minds of honest wizards. The timeline is restored to normal, and the adventures may continue. Only one question remains. How good is this good that Potter and his friends so actively enforce? How many times did he himself doubt if he was on the right path? And did Harry ever truly rid himself of Voldemort's soul fragment? We'll have to search for those answers in our imagination, because times in the magical world change rapidly, with or without a time turner. And that's all for me. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon. Your engagement is the best reward for me. Thank you for watching, see you soon, bye.